takes a copy of the in, passes it through to the next device. Right, so make sure, again, unclear on that at all, make sure you read that over in day 2, where you find that stuff. A couple of these I'm going to skip in the interest of time, because I'm not going to ask them all these tests anyway. Cool. So really kind of a day 1 thing, but just a logic thing in general, the 6 areas of logic. Right? I want you to kind of know those well enough that if I were to ask you where you find something, you kind of know what area to look at. So we've got 6 areas: arrange, media lists and notes, edit, transport, toolbar, inspector. Day 1, you have that list. True or false? The arrange area is where I find the piano roll. Where is it actually? Exactly.
Edit.
Cool. I see that one wrong a lot, because it does sort of look like it's the same area as the arrange area. But that little row of buttons is the edit area. It's completely separate.
Transport is not considered.
Transport's it's one of the 6. I might have said.
What are the 6 areas again?
You got arrange, edits, media lists and notes, toolbar, inspector, transport. Which I'll tell you again.
What is your toolbar?
Cool. So again, just basic familiarity with that. That's all I need. Cool. So on your sampler day, you saw 2 forms of memory. You saw ROM and RAM. 2-part question. Out of the 2, ROM and RAM, which one works for a sampler?
RAM.
RAM, yes. And RAM allows you to do one thing that ROM does not.
Make changes.
Well, we can access it either way. Writing it.
What? Access it randomly.
RAM allows you to write to the memory. The other way to say that is it allows me to throw the sample on there and play the sample back. Works for a sample.
What day is that?
Day 8. For all your sampler stuff. So ROM would not work for a sample because we can't write to it. I can't put samples into it. I can only read back stuff that other people put there. Read on. Right? So kind of 2 things I want you guys to get there. Which one we use for a sampler, right? RAM, not ROM, and what is the one thing it does that allows for that, which is write. So ROM would be like you buy a keyboard like this. It comes with sounds. You can play them back, but I can't put more stuff on it. Right? I can read what's already there. RAM, I can put stuff there, play it back, which is what you're doing. Cool. So day 8 on all your sampler stuff. So I guess this is something we would have kind of discussed on day 2. It's come up a few times though. But it's a word to describe an instrument like the one on my desk, where I can make multiple sounds all at the same time, all on separate MIDI channels. Often mispronounced word that means a tone or a sound. I've got multiple. Close enough. Multi-timbre. Yes. I was trying to throw that the multiple thing in there too, but. So I do see this get confused a lot, though, with mono and polyphonic. So if those 2 are confusing at all to you, kind of make a note, make sure you kind of compare, check out the difference there. Timbre means sound. So how many sounds can this one thing make at a time? I've got 16 sounds on here. Some of the sounds might be monophonic, some of them might be polyphonic. Right, so the monopolyphonic thing says how many notes can a sound make at the same time. This says how many sounds can my instrument make. Right, so multi-timbre, anything that can make more than one sound at a time. So day 2, you'd find that description. We'll get to monopolyphonic thing here in a minute. All right. So I want you to tell me what piece of equipment I'm talking about. We kind of use logic to do this, but it could be a separate piece of equipment. And it does the following. Records, edits, and plays back MIDI events. Exactly. So that sequencer might be part of software that does more than that. It might be a separate piece of equipment. Again, if you just have a MIDI sequencer, that's all it's going to do. Right, take your MIDI events, let you move them around, play them back. So day 2, also, you find your sequencer description and all of that. All right, so let's hit a day 3 thing here, our music theory day. I'll use air quotes when I call it that. So I'm going to give you a definition. I want you to give me the word I'm looking for. So a regular occurrence, strong and weak beats. Exactly. Now I will not test you on the silent H, so don't worry too much about that. It took me like 3 days to figure out why that slide didn't look right. So yes, again, to me, the kind of key thing to spot there that really jumps out to me is that first part, right? That regular occurrence part. Without that, the rest of it is not a rhythm, right? It's not a rhythm until this stuff happens regularly. So again, right at the beginning of day 3, you would find that description. I sort of just mentioned this a second ago, but now I've got a synth that can only play one note at a time. How would I describe that?
Monotone.
Which means you know the opposite. Which means we don't need a whole second slide for it. So there you go. Mono, one at a time. Poly, more than one at a time. So again, if that's confusing to you at all with multi-timbral, maybe make a note of that. Make sure you kind of contrast those. Make sure you can kind of spot the difference. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, I will be in my office tomorrow all day, noon to 8 with the door open. So if people do kind of study, find you have a couple things you need to go over, make sure you stop by and hit me up while you have a chance. Cool. So day 6, we looked at 3 types of instruments: acoustic, electric, electronic. The main difference there was what comes out: sound, signal, or both. So I want you to look at those 3 as you're studying: acoustic, electric, electronic. You know which one does what. So, example: out of those 3, which one only makes signal and does not make sound?
Electronic.
Exactly. So we got electronic only making signal, acoustic only making sound, and electric making both. Right? So yes, when you think electric guitar. Right? You can hear it before you plug it in, but the signal once you do plug it in is probably what you're going. Right? That's what they call it. So day 6, 3 types of instruments. Just make sure you know that basic one. Right? What comes out. Cool. So I guess this is something that we've talked about pretty much all the time in here, but I guess your notes would be in day 3, but you should know this. It's the button you hit when you want to move your MIDI events to the closest place on the grid.
One side.
Yep. So hopefully you've started figuring that button out by now. Or I would hate to hear your music. Might hate it anyway, but at least play it for me anyway. Yes, that is one time. So there you go. So day 3, you'd find all your detailed notes about that. Place. So this is a function I use, say if I have something that's already on a software instrument track and I want to hit a button and turn that to an audio track. What do you call that?
Creating? No. Bouncing.
Exactly. So basically, anytime you have something in your system already, you want to put it to a new track in that same system, you can bounce it. Right? So it could be from a software instrument track to an audio track. It could be from an audio track to another audio track. Whatever it is, right? You've got something on one track, you want to bounce it over to another. So bouncing is fun. So day 5 is where you would find all of your bouncing information. Remember, you can't bounce anything that's not in your computer already, right? It's not, you have to record it like we did with that drum machine. So this, I can never remember if this is day 4 or day 5. You guys might have to tell me. But remember, MIDI is just this whole set of rules, right? This set of standards that everybody follows so that everything's compatible. Well, Roland added to that set of rules, right? Some certain things, like a list of 128 sounds that's always the same. Drums on channel 10, certain way your drums are mapped across your keyboard.
General MIDI.
So to me, the way you spot that is Roland, right? Roland came up with that idea, and everybody else kind of made their stuff compatible. But again, the main thing of that is that kind of list of sounds, right? It's the same on every synthesizer. It's going to make your stuff translate from system to system. So the next one I can skip. Okay, so on day 5, set it up so I had my drum machine up here along with Logic, and I had so every time I hit play on Logic, the drum machine would play. Every time I hit stop, the drum machine would stop. Exactly. So anytime we cause 2 or more devices to run at the same rate, run together, we synchronize them. So I'm going to stay on that subject for the next question here. So when these two or more devices are MIDI devices, or two MIDI sequencers like we did, we use MIDI clock to make that happen. Right? That's what we use for synchronization. MIDI clock has 4 parts to its message. 3 of them are start, stop, and tempo. What's that 4th part? Continue, exactly. Start, stop, continue, and tempo. 4 things that are happening when we get MIDI clock going from one machine to the other. Again, continue is the only one that's not self-explanatory there. Again, that's just how if I start logic at bar 25, that continue message is going to tell the drum machine to also start at bar 25. So that when they start together, they play the same point of the song, continue from the same place. Okay. Next one. So this is kind of a general MIDI question, but it's really just kind of a MIDI question. True or false? General MIDI in its list of sounds has 127 programs. What number should that say? So I'm just using General MIDI as the example here. The 2 numbers are the point. Right? So again, just know how those 2 numbers relate. Right? The question says how many? 128. The question says what is the top number in that list? 127. The lowest number is 0. Right? So I just want you to understand how those numbers relate. And then we'll get the 3rd important number. Although this is sort of a number too, but it's not MIDI, so it doesn't count. So we looked at intervals on our music day, right? Just describing the distance between 2 different notes. 2 basic intervals I wanted us to know. The first one is, say I go from C1 to C2 on my keyboard. What interval is that? Octave, which has how many semitones? So octave and a semitone. I just want you to understand what those are. Right? So remember, from a note to the next of the same note would be an octave. From a note to the very next note next to it would be a semitone. Right? So from a white key to the black key right above it would be raising 1 semitone. Semitones and octaves, only intervals I care about. Yep, 1 note. Yeah, that would be 2 semitones. And then from like C to C would be an octave. From F sharp to F sharp. So 1 octave. Exactly. Let's see. I'm just going to put this one up here. I don't feel like I should have to ask that out loud. So hopefully that's what you thought it stood for. If you didn't, you were wrong and you should change what you did. So there it is. It's also the first note you ever took here, so that should help you find it. One more type of equipment we looked at would have happened day 4. Combines together in one piece of equipment a synthesizer, a sequencer, and a controller all in one box. All I need to plug in is headphones. What do we call that?
Workstation.
Workstation. Remember, anytime you see a workstation, it's implying that it's kind of combining all the different types of things you need to get working all in one box. So I've got sounds, I've got a sequencer for those sounds, and a controller to play those sounds all in one box. I have a workstation. Alright, so we're almost there. 2-part question on synthesizers. So day 7.